I think that all of our outrage feels spent and tapped out sometimes. But when you look at today's headlines, you literally had Tony Fauci on 60 Minutes last night talking about how he and his wife have to speed walk with security. And then you see their life out on an exercise walk with two security guards protecting them because they get death threats every day. And then you see a sitting governor whose crime, in Trump's view, was being too aggressive in trying to protect her citizens from the pandemic. Also begging the president not to further endanger her life by instigating and encouraging and greenlighting the white supremacists and domestic terrorists who threaten her. It seems that we've entered an area beyond outrage, and it almost calls for sort of a missing tool in the government or the congressional toolkit. I know we have an election in 2 weeks, but it seems like no matter what happens, he could still do a lot of harm, win or lose, between November and January.
Yeah. I mean, hi, Nicole. How are you? It's Monday. It's nice to I'm usually not with you on Monday. It's nice to start the week with. It's nice to start the week with you and with my friends Claire and Jeremy. Genuinely, as we hurtle into this final 2 weeks where you think that all the October surprises have to be played out. We've had them all, but, given the way 2020 has gone, I'm assuming we're going to have at least like maybe a Martian invasion or something between now and Election Day. I think, it never hurts to remind people of the context here. The president said, liberate Michigan. The president started this fire, right? He lit the fire. He sparked the match. He threw it on the kindling. And then these Wolverine militia, domestic terrorist morons came up with this plot to not just kidnap the governor. It really upsets me every time I hear someone talk about it's a plot to kidnap the governor. They were going to take her off in the woods in Wisconsin and execute her, like Al-Qaeda style. That was the plan, right? So they may not be able to make that stick as a matter of law, but that was their intent. They were going to put her on trial in the woods. You know what the verdict was going to be in that trial. So Donald Trump, having lit the fire, now luckily, law enforcement was able to douse the fire. And here comes the president 2 weeks from Election Day trying to restart it and then pour gasoline on top of it. On top of that, I agree with you. It's so easy to be hyperbolic about Donald Trump. It's also easy to just get used to it. It's like we want to try to find the right way to talk about this. But that is... He engaged in incitement to domestic terrorism, and he's doing it again. It's like you would think that if the man had any moral sense, if the man had any political sense, there's a reason why he's behind in Michigan. The governor's more popular than he is. The governor, she's gotten a lot of people angry at her in Michigan. There's no doubt. But the governor's approval rating's well north of Donald Trump's, and he's losing that state. And that's why. And so if there's no moral sense to it, there's no political sense to it. I don't know whether there's some legal sense or there's some law that applies to this kind of behavior. If there's not, there should be. But my God, it sends a chill down the spine to think if Donald Trump is willing to talk this way about Gretchen Whitmer after his role in what almost happened to her, what will he do between now and Election Day? And what will he not do after Election Day if things don't go his way? I find the whole thing, the only way to discuss it is it's disgusting, but also terrifying.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.